Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Hon Ssemujju, and as Moses Kaole would say, with a bevy of topics for the Capital Gang this morning. In the studio already, we have one of the young lawyers that I like, Mr. George Musisi. Is it significant that you're wearing a red shirt today?
Well, good morning, listeners. Good morning, Oscar. Red is one of the national colors, as you are aware. But the most important issue is the message on the T-shirt. Yes.
The message is Free Aaron Kiza.
Yes.
Okay, that's the message on the shirt. But since you can't wear it in court, I'm not so sure how helpful that is.
Well, as we've realized, even this week has shown that many times even the work of courts is done outside. Sometimes the times you're living in are hard that you need to do more work outside than in courts, as we saw in this last week.
Okay. Then I have another lawyer in the studio. He is
make meaningful contribution to this debate.
A bit of that was missed. We hadn't tuned it properly, but you're most welcome. Eddie Nangul is from the Uganda Law Society, a council representative, Eastern Region.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
That means that I am the president from the Eastern Region.
Okay. And are you of the banging tables?
Yes, we are of the Radical New Bar. I bring you greetings from the president. I bring you greetings from the Radical New Bar and the entire membership of the lawyers.
Do you know where the president, the radical president is?
Yes, I do.
You might be the only one who knows where he is.
No, we all do. We haven't kept his address a secret. He's attending the ESCJ.
Okay.
We have court beginning next week. Key matters involving the rule of law and our jurisprudence here.
Okay, will he be able to attend that court since he's been convicted in Uganda?
Definitely. He will appear in court. He's the one who is supposed to appear to argue the cases, so he'll be there.
Okay. Ofano Pondo is in the studio as well, but I'll greet him a little bit later. He's a bit busy with Star Cafe materials. So he has started the attack straight away.
Since he walked in, he has finished 3 chapatis already.
I will call for Andrew Mwenda.
So you're most welcome.
And George Musisi.
And George Musisi.
So that they engulf you.
Well, they are right next to him. So you're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Honorable Hon Ssemujju.
Thank you.
Good morning
Oscar.
to you.
Good morning.
Yes, that was quite a shouting match you had with Andrew Mwenda on Thursday evening. I missed the program itself, but I've since watched very many video clips going on. So in the end, was there any communication possible?
But I was in the studio, so you should ask those who were watching the show.
and it was very quiet.
But at least Andrew, Ofano Pondo, when he got angry, he just kicked Lukwago.
Yes.
So at least Andrew was just shouting.
I may sue you unless you bring evidence to that effect.
Right. So here we go. Sometimes you don't even know where to start. So, Mr. Musisi,
can you just say?
Yeah.
You have introduced Musisi.
You see,
he's the intending candidate for Kira municipality.
Oh.
On a NOP ticket.
Aspirant.
That's why I'm saying it.
Oh.
Yes.
That is information that was not in. I did not know.
One of the reasons he's doing so much media tours.
Yeah.
I think he's copying from the one he wants to replace.
That is not true.
George, I wish you well. I wish you well. As I wish Ibra.
Don't be like Rugunda.
This is the first time you have wished an NUP candidate well. I have never known.
Yeah, George is a boy from my village in Chagwe. So he's a son of a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would wish him to come into Parliament, or they wouldn't want him to remember my other young brother.
Yeah.
But George would bring the resources nearer home, I think.
Well, I have to say I did not know. He has never brought himself here. I usually invite him. I invite him as a lawyer, and this time he's an interested lawyer. So with Dr. Kizza Besigye, first he was brought to court the other day, and then judge sent him back to prison because he was unwell. Were you surprised by that to begin with? And on what charge had he been brought to court?
Well, I was not surprised, but I was disappointed. For starters, we know that Dr. Kizza Besigye was remanded by the court martial to return to court on the 3rd of February this year. By the 3rd, the Supreme Court had made a decision to the effect that the court martial work was frozen. That meant that he couldn't appear before the court martial again, but that also meant that he could only be in prison on a lawful remand by another court, which couldn't happen because the ideal thing would have been for government either to release him or to charge him by the 3rd if he was to remain in prison, which didn't happen on time at least. The lawyers applied for a writ of habeas corpus to be produced in court. One, habeas corpus has two limbs. To find out where the person is detained. But secondly, to ascertain if you are detaining him, why are you detaining him? The legality of the detention.
You may have to explain to Ssemujju what habeas corpus is.
Honorable Ssemujju has been in the trenches for long. He knows these things. But basically that, bring the body. It means bring the body and tell us why you are detaining him, if at all. So they applied, there was another matter which was filed in court both for Dr. Besigye. So there were two cases in court which had not got a date. And I know that there were a lot of back and forth meetings behind the scenes. That's why I told you initially that the work, what goes into court, many of the work takes place behind court. I was in one of those meetings together with Counsel Judy Amukama, and we are trying to get a date for purposes of having the legality of Dr. Besigye and, of course, my brother Aaron Kizza examined by court. Initially, court gave us the 25th of this month, which is the coming Tuesday. And in fact, documents were signed, the production warrant was issued, and the hearing noticed that the matter is going to be fixed on Tuesday. We even tried to serve those documents, saying, okay, we tried to negotiate for a closer date because we are saying the gentleman is sick. He had last appeared in court on Friday at Muganda Road, and he was frail. But of course, we couldn't get a nearer date. Later on, the documents were recalled by court, and another production warrant and the hearing notice was issued that now appear tomorrow, which those documents both came out at around 5 p.m. In fact, for some of them, we served even the prisons electronically. And I later got to know that there was some work which even started from Parliament. The three ministers were even seen at court premises, that is Honorable Mao, Honorable Kafozi, and Honorable Muhozi. So possibly we inferred that this could have been the reason for the radical change of the dates. So we are happy because that's what we wanted, that they are appearing the following day, both Dr. Besigye and Aaron. When we appeared in court, as you all saw, because it was being televised, court said that, okay, now you've seen the gentleman, but he's frail, so I don't want him to collapse. Please take him back. Which, of course, was also a bit disappointing, because if you are saying the person we are examining the illegality of his detention, and the first thing you say before you hear the application that, okay, take him back, then supposing you are to find that the detention is illegal, wouldn't you have participated in taking him back further in the illegal detention? So that's why I say that we found it a bit surprising, because at least court would have, the lawyers were praying for an interim remedy, at least release him, at least put him under in a bit of care. Court has all these obligations. On one hand, we have government saying, no, we have serious charges against this person, which they have not brought until yesterday, because like I said, the court judgment was 31st January. So for about 2-3 weeks, they hadn't brought these charges. So it was about examining the legality. So we found it a bit disappointing, but of course, and then after hearing of the applications, the two applications, both for Dr. Besigye and Aaron, court said I will issue the judgment anytime before Tuesday, before 25th, which is the coming Tuesday. And of course, we later learned that now the file has appeared at ODPP, the DPP's office, and the charges are now ready. And of course, as we all saw, he appeared in court yesterday, and he was charged with the treason, and now he was lawfully remanded, something that we've been demanding since, because even when he first brought this in court martial, his plea was, I'm in the wrong court, take me to rightful court and read whatever charges. So eventually he was brought after all this back and forth, and now he's in lawful custody, and the lawyers have applied for bail, and we shall see how it goes from there.
What going back a little bit, what was the charge at court martial?
At court martial,
what was he charged with?
He was initially charged with
what do you mean initially?
Yes, because they amended the charge sheet.
Oh.
The first time he appeared in the court martial was charged with offenses to do with disturbing the security of the country. It's an offense in the UPDF Act, which is very vague. It can, and then later on they amended to treachery. Treachery is also an offense only found in the UPDF Act. It's almost akin to treason, only that for treachery there's an extra ingredient of having formed a group, and then unlike treason, it carries a death sentence. In the UPDF Act, it carries a death sentence. So here he was charged with treason, 2 counts, treason and misprision of treason, which means concealing treason. And of course, when they try to break down the facts, they're not so different from what the court martial had written, that, he participated in meetings in Geneva, in Greece, for purposes of overthrowing the government of Uganda by use of arms.
Right. And Aaron Kiza is still in prison illegally?
Aaron is the difference with Aaron and Dr. Besigye. Aaron was convicted. We disagree with the conviction. We think it was unlawful, but he was convicted at least. He was not under. So he can only get out of prison by a court order, because he's there by an order which says up to 9 months. We've challenged. We are waiting for the decision of court, because it was also heard this past week. We are waiting for the decision, which we are told it will come out either on Monday or Tuesday, and then we shall take it up from there. So we are waiting his freedom, but he's okay physically. I was with him yesterday in prison, and I know that we shall try to see that we fight
with the Supreme Court ruling recently. Does it not overturn all convictions from the court martial?
No. For those who had challenged, they say those who have been convicted and they haven't challenged, it's their discretion to either seek, because some people have even served the sentences, like the Olivia Lutaya group and all. But then they say that for those who are serving the sentences, but they had challenged their convictions and sentences, they got a benefit. So Aaron is in that category, because he had both appealed, and he had challenged that conviction and sentence in civil courts. So that's why we are challenging it, and we await the decision of the High Court.
Okay, what an education. We have another lawyer in the studio, Lydia Wanyoto Mutende. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Lydia.
Thank you, Oscar, and colleagues at the gang, good morning, and to also our listeners, good morning. I would like to welcome, of course, Musi is always here, like Oo has said.
No, it is me who said Musi is always here. Or just give us extra information.
Oo has said that I think his media appearances are speaking to something. 2025, 2026, and he's in red, said next to Ssemujju in blue. So these are my brothers. Also, I'd like to welcome Council Eddie Nangulu, not because he's from the Radical Bar, who are my bosses, but he's also
from the East.
We share the same city. We are both in Mbale city, and we hustle together. So Eddie, da kunyaire wanyala kweza kwa mimbali. Wezeka unakunyaire Eddie wanyala kweza. And greetings from Mbale city on that note.
Okay. So we go to you, Eddie Nangulu, banging the table lawyer. On the case of Kiza Besigye. So now, you know the way you lawyers speak. So, because Musi here says now he is okay because he's legally remanded, legally in prison.
He has stopped the hangers.
And he has even stopped hangers.
You see, Oscar and the members listening, there's nothing okay about Besigye's situation. But the beauty about it is that Besigye has exposed the shortfalls in our system, beginning from the Supreme Court decision and the ineptness of the courts to even take action after the judgment. The court has failed. The courts have failed by themselves to implement their decision. We have hundreds of persons sitting in Luzira right now without any valid remand warrants, and nothing can be done about them. Now, my brother Moses.
What does that mean? Valid remand warrant?
You see, where somebody is sent to prison, it's on a remand warrant. Now, when the Supreme Court said that the trials are nullified and the court is disbanded, it meant that there must be now recourse for those persons there. Now, hundreds of them are in custody. Now, Musia and my friends who are fighting for Kiza Besigye and Aaron, maybe also the ULC is also fighting for a number of Karamajongs who are in custody. The challenge that we have is that only Kiza Besigye's file has since been sent to the DPP. That was what they confirmed yesterday. Now, the other files, it is coming to a month and nothing has been done. It exposes to you that the government indeed has no intention of indeed losing the grip on the civilians who have been tried by this court here. They are running as fast as they can to re-establish the court. Yet what they must do right now is to oversee the transfers of the files to the civilian courts. Now, Kiza Besigye's state, as my brother was saying, is seemingly okay, but not the case. He has been charged, yes. But now that exposes him to the gross malpractice within the civilian courts. He has been, he appeared before a grade 1 court. A grade 1 court can't try the offenses with which is being tried. Now, the laws that we are currently abiding by require that where you are in such a matter charged, you must appear before a court lacking jurisdiction to try your case. And then they will have your case mentioned for close to 6 months before they can now have you appear before a court that can try your case. This is wrong. Now, basically, much as he would think now it's time to celebrate, there's nothing to celebrate about our system. He's going to expose even the rot the more that now he has to be mentioned. You appear just to be called and sent back. You called and sent back. And that is now the cycle now for every other person.
Who chose that?
That is our law. That is our law. The law is that for a capital offense, you'd go through what they call committal proceedings. And committal is one of those colonial relics, yes, that causes one to appear in a wrong court. Now he's being picked from a court that they are saying is being disbanded and now being brought to a wrong court. And he's having charges read to him that he listens to and then has to just keep on reporting until the state says, yes, now we have been able to amass enough evidence. We can now have you sent to the proper court to try you. And the time frame is 6 months. But Oscar,
that it must not exceed 6 months.
Yes, but still that is too long. That is a penalty even before you are condemned. That is a pre-trial sentence that people are facing. Now, for us who practice the law, it is good for us because it is now able to expose what we encounter every day. We have been calling for amendment of the law so that persons no longer have to appear before these such processes. Why can't someone appear before the proper and appropriate court instantly at the right time? Now, that is just one leg of where Besigye would not be celebrating. The second leg is that he has to now wait for a session. Our system is that you sit by for close to 5 to 8 years before you can be fixed on a session. Now,
how long?
5 to 8 years is the wait period. Somebody was the other day, I think it was about 8 years or something that he was now being forwarded for trial. But that is the road that we are enduring. Now, why us we celebrate Besigye's state right now is because it is going to expose what we have been experiencing, and maybe it will give us the required momentum to this situation.
Honorable Ssemujju, I'm sure, like me, you have learned a lot today from these two young lawyers.
No, you need to continue learning that these laws are made in Parliament.
Right.
So all the words that you are hearing are words that were put in these laws by Parliament. So I am not with you in that class.
So you know a little bit more.
Yeah, because we make the laws.
Right.
You see, as the radical bar has said, the shabbiness of this government to which my senior brother is a senior cadre, senior ideologue. I was in Nakawa court yesterday when Dr. Besigye was brought. The lawyer, and I sympathize with these lawyers representing the government, he said this matter is for mention because investigations are incomplete. Just a few days ago, Museveni said, why don't you ask for a quick trial? Why don't you ask for a quick trial? The spokespersons and those who are helping them said they have a lot of evidence in the video, in the sacks, on track, but Besigye doesn't want to be tried.
Even Andrew Mwenda seemed to have a lot of evidence.
That's the shabness and madness. Because you see, the moment you have all that evidence, present it to court, and immediately, because you see, the point he makes, it's not mandatory that you must stay in that lower court for 6 months. You must not go beyond 6 months. They can actually present you the same day, and you are referred to the high court. But the reason suspects are not referred to the appropriate court for trial is because government in Uganda made it a habit that they will arrest you on suspicion and begin investigations after. Sometimes they even drop cases after realizing that they don't have enough evidence to sustain, or sometimes they revise cases. Because I told you in my own case, I was at that Nakawa court. The investigating officer, and I told you he comes from the same area where I was born, he proposed that I should be charged with terrorism because he found me walking during walk to work from Chireka to Banda, and he said that walking constituted an offense called terrorism. The DPP luckily said no, I was charged with 2 offenses, disobeying lawful order and public nuisance. But in our case, sometimes we are lucky because of the profile. They can speed you through the process. But if you are an ordinary person, and I understood him to be speaking for the ordinary suspects who are there. There was time I was in Nakawa court for another offense. That time Abdu was my lawyer. We had been arrested together with Cecilia Ogwals and others. And they brought a young boy who had been arrested, but he had been in prison for 11 years. The magistrate there said, okay, since you were even brought when you were young, now I have discharged you. He even had to appoint a lawyer, one of the lawyers in the court, to represent that young man. But he had been on remand reporting for 11 years, no trial. While Museveni in his letter speaks about a speedy trial, and when he's lambasting the civil courts, is that they really die with cases, they delay. That's why you brought the military court that can do things quicker. People who were arrested, the NUP supporters, it is now 4 years. They have never presented a single witness to have them tried before a court martial, because the intention was never to try them. The intention was to keep you in prison as long as it pleases Mr. Museveni. When he will send you an emissary to say, now you can say sorry to me, and I think he derives satisfaction from that, then he says, okay, for you, I have pardoned you, I can even give you money to go and start a business. So yes, Dr. Besigye appeared. The reason he ended the hunger strike was because he was being persecuted by the military. Commander-in-chief of the military is Yoweri Museveni. His son is the head of the military. And you can see the communication. The son said, we are going to hang you. You will live only in a coffin. You must come and kneel before my father. You will do this and that. And by the way, Oscar, you will excuse me for transgressing. I was telling NRM MPs as they were loading them in 2 buses, digressing, loading them in 2 buses being taken to Entebbe. And I said, you must be very careful. And I want to say this in honest. Museveni, with all his shortcomings, because of his experience, but also the way he came into power, there are things that he doesn't do or he does differently. His son is an amateur, too mechanical. And I told NRM MPs, because you're all supporting Museveni's son to take over, but you are changing the legal landscape in the country. At least Museveni has been charging you for this and that, and then he will grab you at the High Court. But now there is one who wants to arrest you even before committing a crime. That's what he told the Parliamentary Committee on Defense. When they summoned him, he said, "Who are you to summon me? I'll come and arrest you." Now you are changing, assuming Museveni dies, because he's a candidate by his age. He doesn't even have to be sick. Oscar, my father, just fell down and died. He didn't fall sick. When you are in that age, 70's age, I mean, your health can fail. One day you wake up and it cannot continue. And Museveni has said it himself. And then you are in the hands of someone who sometimes behaves like a madman. And you have, by your own action, you have changed the legal landscape. So, back to the point, Oscar. We are now comfortable.
Before back to the point,
yes,
the where you diverted.
Yes.
Do we need to provide you with some extra security from Capital Gang, because the CDF also said he's ready for you?
No, he said he will kill me. So do you have security that can stop that killing? I told the people one time I was attending a funeral in my constituents, and I told them, you see, you should never be frightened by death. And I usually tell the story of Kasirye Gwang. I used to meet him seeking medical attention from Nakasero Hospital with the guards, 2 of them with the AK-47. But they found them outside and said the person you are guarding is dead. So even these guns are not security themselves, Oscar. So but people can pretend and draw comfort in them.
Okay.
So
back to the topic as
yes.
concluding.
So Dr. Besigye is now in the appropriate court. It doesn't, by the way, mean that the treatment will automatically change. You may be in the appropriate court, but the prosecution can continue. They can bring charges, they can change them, the courts themselves can play you around, because the level of tension that was in the court, and I sympathize with these people who are serving this government, even the magistrates. I remember the story one time of Vietnam. There was a journalist who had been given a news bulletin written, go and read. And you see, when you are reading wrong, she burst into cry, started crying, she couldn't read, and that's where the bulletin ended. I saw the magistrate handling this matter. Dukwago is telling you that Besigye's health is in your hands, and you can see a man who was arrested walking is now in a wheelchair. But you cannot exercise your authority as a court because you are serving in very difficult circumstances. I told you Oscar was in Masaka when Aaron Sewanya and Segirinya were being released by a high court judge. And the high court judge said these are MPs, by their own profile they will attend court. When they got rearrested, the same court but now a different judge, he said these are MPs, they will interfere with the investigation, they should be in jail. Until when Museveni said now you can release them. So the courts, yes, exist. Besigye is now in the right court. The offences have been amended as Council Musi has said, but the content remains the same. So what the lawyers did was to apply for bail. I hope, because by the last in the evening I was speaking to the road mayor when he was driving to Luzira. Because even accessing him sometimes is not easy, and they needed him to sign before you go and file that application. I haven't spoken to him, so we hope that the courts will independently hear him and then make a decision, and then we will celebrate that decision, which of Hon Opondo, if it is granted, he will say, but you say courts are not independent. Sometimes they will make decisions that can surprise you, and we celebrate those particular decisions, not the courts themselves. I want you to make that, to note that of Hon Opondo.
Oh.
Yes. First of all, I have said on this show many times, I have written, I said some of these, particularly on Besigye and part of the NOPU group, were self-inflicted by the government. because from where I stand, I sit in meetings, I think we could have handled this differently and better. Because we are the ones, for the last 38 years, reformed the judicial system, not sufficiently though, and I agree with the Council Nangulu. We still have a judicial system, a legal system, which is colonial in nature. And we have seen in this week in the Parliament, people going back to wigs, people rejecting their own traditional attire and so on. That shows you the kind of mind of the elites leading the country.
No. I'll explain why. Some people come there in towels and pajamas.
No.
Because they are made in the Biteng.
Have you been to the Indian Parliament?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and other parliaments.
Yeah.
They don't put on those suits of yours. And if you put on a suit and a necktie and you speak garbage, what is the use?
We are discussing
like men. So I thought.
No, I like that diversion.
Yeah.
Since you also diverted
I thought we could have handled this matter differently. And by the overzealousness, we have now brought the UPDF in my assessment and its court system to unnecessary disrepute. Prior, everybody respected the decision and the efficiency of the court martial because of what the president himself has said. It brought discipline, particularly in the army. Now we have gone into a territory where even serving soldiers are going to challenge their trial, even if just disciplinary. Somebody steals a ration, dry ration, somebody loses war material, and is going to come to challenge his trial. So we are by ourselves killed, quote and unquote, the court martial. I hope we can learn and do better. I am also glad that now Besigye is before the right court, quote and quote. But of course this will not stop his sidekicks from raising other side issues. They will now talk about the delay. You have heard them here, the delay in the judicial process, and yet, George, there's somebody, I think they used to say, the wheel of justice moves slowly, turns slowly. So,
but this one is not turning at all.
We have had that adage for a long time. That's why they said once a matter is in the court, don't pressurize the magistrate. The magistrate simply comes, sits in her chambers or in his chambers reading newspapers, while you, the litigants, are out on the bench waiting, and nobody can knock and say, "You magistrate, what are you doing? Why don't you attend to us?" You see them coming at 11, and they leave at 12:30, and because they have been given this clothes with this, you can't touch them. We have allowed. Before I came to this job, I was the chief investigator at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. I moved to virtually every major prison in the country. And what Ssemujju has just said here, we found there people who have been on remand for more than 10 years in the civilian courts. And prosecutors and investigators and the magistrates don't bother. Now, I can understand why capital offences were restricted for trial at the High Court, and also why taking plea was at a lower court, which Nanguru is saying the wrong court. I think it's the right court. At that time, and even now, was because the High Court level were few and far between. So if you are arrested in Gulu, did you want those suspects to be kept in the police cells? Because the only High Court was in Kampala, the judge was in Kampala. But now that we have many circuits, we have Tororo, we have Bale, almost major towns now have high court judges, sometimes even 2. Probably now it is the right time to amend so that people charged with the capital offences, it should not be the burden of the state. Once they arrest me for capital offence, drive me straight to be before the judge in Tororo, so that I'm charged before the competent court, which can take my plea and probably weigh and grant me bail quickly if I meet the. So I think that can be done through the instruments of the Chief Justice and so on and so forth. I think that can be done. So now, I think let's go to the substantive issue for which Besigye on which Besigye is being accused, and I hope the state will provide its evidence, whether it is credible or not, and then if he's acquitted, it won't be the first time. If he's convicted, well and good for the prosecution. Yeah, well and good for the prosecution. But of course, if you look at the history of Uganda, I don't recall any civilian courts anyone who has been convicted of treason.
Moses Ali was.
Moses Ali?
Yes.
That was one.
I think that is the only group which has been convicted.
One, I don't recall. I don't know how he came out then. Anyway, but that's the one.
He came out and was appointed the minister.
Yeah, well, that's one
immediately
in 1,000 case. I hope this one will be the second one, and I hope we have good evidence. I also thought, and I've said on this show, that where I sit, I think I know very well that Besigye has been planning. He has said so himself. I thought we could have dealt with his matter of treachery differently. For me, if we have the evidence that there is, we could have used it in the court of public opinion simply to expose him. He's a sinister motive. And for me, that could have been sufficient, and that would be sufficient for me, because so that's what. So for me, that's one leg. The other one,
come to the microphone.
The other one is, I always say that there's the law, but the law ends at some point. So there is the end of the law, the beginning of politics. If you are building a young society like ours, sometimes I think it is not very good, and the president has demonstrated this himself. You don't have to go legalize. Sometimes you bend backwards and have these cases handled politically. That brings politically. You can call someone who has grievance or who has even committed an offense, understand the reasons why they have taken that route. If they are essentially political in nature, like in many of these cases now, people are politically disgruntled. Now you can examine what is making them disgruntled, and you sort the political issues, and you have a way to get them out. Let me give an example. We have had many cases, particularly in northern Uganda, in West Nile, where people go up to the Supreme Court, they lose cases there. Criminal, but also civil. They are seeking compensation, for example, which is not provided for in our laws. War damages and things like that. And they have no way to prove that they had the things they claim. And the president has gone out of his way to say, look, and that's particularly why the State House budget, particularly for the donation, is big. I said true. partly at all. The president goes out of his way and gives financial compensation for people who have been aggrieved but are unable to receive justice in the judicial system. He has also gone out of his way. The Supreme Court has dismissed your case. I'm giving you ex gratia. So that's the political way I am talking about. You have seen the negotiations where people have been captured in war, in the battle. Instead of some of them have been taken to court, but instead of prosecuting them, quietly they are released. They are negotiated through, appointed into government. The case you have just mentioned here is one of them. My brother Musa Chuar is another, and many others. And I think when we are building a young society like this, the law, it shouldn't be the end in itself. There should be where politics starts. Now, Ssemujju is talking about a madman and warning NRM people not to change the legal. If you have a madman coming on top, you don't have to have changed the legal landscape. They will ignore the legal landscape even if it is a good one. So, first of all, don't
this is a starting point.
To create a situation where you don't allow a madman to be in charge. Then build the institutions that can push back. Should in the unlikely event that in the unlikely event that the madman has
overrun the institutions,
has ascended onto the seat. So that's what we should be doing. But the mad people don't need the legal system.
No, as I was coming into radio today, I listened to a bit of BBC. These days, they seem to like Uganda a lot. And they were saying the way Donald Trump is dismantling everything. So this guy says, reminds me a film I watched a long time ago, The Rise and Fall of Idi Amin. And this is how he came in, dismantled everything.
Just find out, Oscar. Yes, of course, the buck stops with the chief executive. So the president's statement that why don't you ask for a speedy trial? The president is not the investigations officer and he cannot supervise every case under investigation.
But you would assume he was briefed.
Yes, he may be briefed. The briefing may be insufficient, but he's also human. He can be taken he can be taken by emotion. So the president is not the investigating officer. He's also not the prosecutor for every case. But he's right that both sides should demand for a speedy trial. But that speedy trial, the onus really remains with the
prosecutor.
With the prosecution.
But I should ask you seriously. Can you kidnap a leader in the opposition from another country without the president's knowledge?
First of all, we don't agree that
these days Canada for it is possible.
No, the question was for.
No. I want to hear
First of all, we don't agree that we kidnapped him.
Do you have to agree?
That is your narrative to suit.
That's the law.
How you want to shape the discussion around how Besigye was brought back. I told you before on this show and other shows, Honorable Ssemujju will appear with
Oscar, you need to remind him of the question he has forgotten.
We have a security and intelligence arrangement within East Africa to share intelligence, but also to take action. So as far as we are concerned, we apprehended Besigye with the help of sister authorities, and we brought him back.
Okay.
Now, if you want to use the word abduction, it is entirely you are.
Okay.
No, that's what the law says, of honor.
But we brought him back.
Whichever arrangement you have, the law is there.
We brought him back, and we arraigned him before a court we believed was of competent jurisdiction. Along the way, you contested the jurisdiction of that court. Along the way, the Supreme Court has nullified the jurisdiction and authority of that court. And we are abiding by the instructions.
Okay.
No, you are actually reenacting.
I want us to go to Lydia. Indeed, where do you start from? Here is another lawyer. So, finally, Kizza Besigye in legal detention. Finally, Dr. Kizza Besigye is in legal detention.
Yes, and the complaints will not stop. Maybe of a different set, but the complaints will continue. Because let me just begin by saying that laws are written to serve a particular purpose of a community. And with the time, they should be reviewed. In Uganda, we have the Law Reform Commission. That speaks to these are living things. because they should be dynamic and change to address problems or to address order in a society at a time. So when we are talking about acts of parliament, like the UPDF Act, which actually has been in Parliament for review, but you remember that also it has been closed in the history, like O has said, of the war. We're coming from a conflicted country. Uganda had a big history of conflict, and when you see some of the laws or the rules where they were harsh or they were more difficult than we have today, because they were addressing a particular hardships of the insecurity at that time. If you look at the legal notice number 1 of 1986, it just carried on what they had been using in their struggle, and it closed it to the new order so that we can have a government that is legitimate to carry on. So for me, I think that if you think like me, I invite you to think like me, that this is an opportunity for us to review the laws that can work for our time. The conflicts in Uganda have subsided. Maybe we need to review the crimes, and our generation is now here. What is it that we can do to review the laws? Maybe through the Law Reform Commission, and we have Parliament. That's why they can work for the times, but also blend with the relevant articles. Chapter 4, what they call the Bill of Rights, or the 1995 Constitution, is still there. That one has not been tampered with. It is still intact. So we can, all of us, be proactive and ensure that the Bill of Rights, we've been quoting Article 28. For us women, we like Article 31, but let's look at the whole picture and ensure that these laws are aligned, but most important, Oscar, with the times. I wanted to share the issue of standards of law and how they are implemented. Oscar, in 2000, early 2000, 2003, 2004, there was the International Tribunal on the Rwanda Genocide. It was housed in Arusha, and they were trying genocide suspects, and the victims were in Rwanda. I was an observer in that International Tribunal, and we made a compelling report that there was no justice in that process. This is an international court. The suspects were being brought in a limousine, Benzes. They were living well. They were dressed in suits. They were eating very well. But the victims were being brought in buses for many days through the borders to Arusha. In their numbers, looking miserable, they're traumatized, as you remember what they went through. We said, no, this cannot be, there's no justice here. So they had to disband that international court because the standards are not the same. So colleagues, I also wanted to let you know, they had to take back the Rwandan victims and form the Gacaca Court. So the Gacaca Court was within the environment and could work so that justice was not only being done but seen to be done. And in Uganda, we have similar courts like in maybe Acholi. What is it called? Those type of courts. I'm just trying to let you know that some of the laws we have in Uganda may be colonial or may not work for us. But we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to say our country is now stable. Can we look at... Fortunately, Ssemujju will not now quarrel because at least the laws that speak, the articles and clauses of the laws that speak to the rights in our 1995 Constitution, the 1995 Constitution that was made in this government are still intact. So we can rely on them like we are doing now. And let me disinform. I've been listening to you, Ssemujju, and the others. Let me inform and disinform your allegations because I sit in caucus and I've been following this because I also have an interest as a person, as a Ugandan. But at our time, we must stand out and make a contribution. So we are following word to word, letter to letter, the ruling of the Supreme Court, align it to the laws that we want to amend and what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court did not say that the court martial should be disbanded. They said what should happen so that it can stand the test of a fair process if somebody is brought before them. And they talked about competences. We have addressed the issue of competences of the court. They talked about recruitment. We have addressed recruitment of the court. They talked about who should appear before that court. We have explained. We are contributing to explaining who should appear before that court. And the issue of civilians has been clearly distinct from the court martial. We have addressed the issues of what is a criminal case, a crime according to the Penal Code of Uganda, but also administrative discipline issues, even within the UPDF. So give people who are working a chance. Time is, Ssemujju, you also have a contribution to make. Because when whatever we are doing as people that support the executive is coming to Parliament, and the public, because the act, the bill was withdrawn. So that we can be able now to align properly.
That bill was there even before.
It was there before. The UPDF amendment bill was already in Parliament. It was withdrawn on Thursday, so that we can now address comprehensively the issues that the Supreme Court addressed, and then we bring it back. It is coming to Parliament through the Ministry of Defence. When it comes to the Parliament through Ministry of Defence and the Veteran Affairs, you have an opportunity, because it will be referred, the process will be referred to the committee, the relevant committee. I don't know whether you still sit on that committee. But when it comes to the committee, you will issue public hearings, and some of us will appear.
And then those
for public hearings,
will say, I will come and arrest you.
So we are looking at 45 million Ugandans. You see, the beauty about some of us is we do not contribute because of us as individuals. We want a better Uganda. We have had children who are Ugandans. We have relatives who are Ugandans. We have a stake in our country. We are contributing to a better Uganda in our time. The Musevens contributed to a better Uganda in their time. And like you are saying, they are in their exit years. But for now, for you are in Parliament, I'm in NRM, ruling government. Let all of us, the Musis are in the private sector, entering through NUP. Ed is here, is in the what's that?
Banging table.
They are banging the radical bar. All of us on this table can contribute to a better Uganda for our children and for our country. We need to do this in a progressive manner. So, Ssemujju, I want you to have an open mind on this matter. Let the bill come back to the House. Please take it to the committee. Offer public hearings. We come and debate this thing for Uganda. It will be a good practice, but leave here knowing that there will be a court martial. And leave here knowing that there will be no civilians.
I have any doubt that
it will be there, but it will be addressing the interests of Uganda, the interests of the army and the forces that are going to secure our country. So, Oscar, as I conclude, the issue of standards are important. Let us utilize the institutions that are available. Let the law reform also do their work, because there are so many other laws. This one was, like, you can say this is the silver lining. The bad situation brings something good. But there are so many other laws that may not be working in our times. Let them come, reform them, and we run the country. So
thank you.
I thought that I could make this contribution and delay the affairs of Honorable Ssemujju and the Musisis. Because it's also difficult when we listen some of you to draw a line between the political season. We are in some of you have come back to the limelight because of this situation. I don't know what would have happened. You are quiet, but now you are all over, and people are now saying, maybe they can make good legislators. It is also good for you, but you'll find us there.
Thank you,
Lydia. So I think we should draw a line to develop a good law for Uganda and the politicking that you have been to bring on table.
We'll stop for a quick break. We'll come back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. A lot of discussion. We are going to go to NUP. George Musi is here. I had not known that he's NUP, but now he can speak towards the NUP abductions. But, yes, sir. Indeed, good question. And you know, he wants to be, Chile is my village, so we need to discuss.
He doesn't vote there.
No, I don't vote there, but the family is there, and our family has been voting for Ssemujju.
But Oscar,
I'll have words with you later. But just to conclude the first one, so we go to NUP
I just wanted to have
abductions.
1 second on that.
Yeah, I can even give you 2 minutes. What Eddie Nanguru told us, as we said, Ssemujju was the one who was not in class, but I was. The president wrote and said you should be seeking for a quick trial. Everything is ready. If you saw these Andrew Mwenda versus Ssemujju shout-outs, Andrew Mwenda said there's overwhelming evidence.
Oscar.
And on other fora, people have been saying, especially in NRM-leaning people, said there's a lot of evidence. So were you a bit shocked to find that actually that there's not a lot of evidence? Or that the investigator is not ready? I don't know even how to phrase it.
The evidence we have probably is for prosecuting a case in the court of public opinion. It may not satisfy the others.
Where Kiza was convicted without a trial.
Yes, and I agree with Honorable Ssemujju that sometimes.
But just take out what is it? The evidence they may have is for court of public.
No. The evidence I may have may be for prosecuting a case successfully in the court of public opinion and media. Now, that evidence, probably if you take it to Justice Owinyidoro, he will say...
To a fairer court.
I'm not so sure that that's the fair court.
Because
their standards are different. That's what I can say. He may say this is street talk.
Okay.
Oh, it is not permissible.
I was not shocked because I've seen it happen in a number of cases. Actually, when people talk about court martial saying that, if you have been found with the guns, why don't you be tried? I've represented hundreds of people before, and I've seen how people talk about evidence, and then when you look at actually what the evidence is required, there's hardly anything. When you talk about the actual case of Dr. Kizza Besigye, he was arrested sometime last year. He was arraigned in court. So who has been denying the quick trial? The first thing he said is that, take me to a proper court. And eventually, even after the Supreme Court decision on 31st January, it took them 3 weeks to just bring a charge before the decent court. So I don't think that he would be the last person to fear a trial, because he has faced a number of them. Possibly he's one of the most charged Ugandans. But then on the issue of, there's something O said about bringing the army courts into disrepute. The Supreme Court decision, and just like the lower court, the Constitutional Court decision in Kabazi Guruka, confirmed what we've always known, that court martials are lawfully established. Our point of disagreement was who they should try. So the constant use of bringing
and what they should try.
The last 5 to 6 years have seen the court martial increasingly being brought into disrepute by bringing flimsy political cases before them. So this is not about the army, it's about the people who make decisions outside. Yes, the people who make decisions outside. I've seen all sorts of flimsy charges. I can give you an example. You remember the case of the NUP campaign team, which was arrested in Kalangala 2020. On 30th December 2020, they were arrested in Kalangala, and they were in state custody. But the charge sheet, which brought them before the court martial, said on 3rd January, when they were in custody, they were found with 4 bullets in Makerere. And 48 people spent 6 months in custody on such a charge, when they were all in state custody. And in any case, even if they had the 4 bullets, how can 48 people have possession of 48 bullets?
They may have been conniving.
Anyway,
yes.
But of course they couldn't.
But you see, it is not just, we have not just brought the court martial into discipline by the civilians.
Come to the microphone.
But even some of the serving officers, the serving officers.
Absolutely.
You remember the case of General Karika Ihura, which died along the way.
He sought forgiveness.
And you remember, yes, and you remember his lawyer Elson Karuhanga.
Yes.
Challenged his continuance. So, part of the way we have done things, we have spoiled our own case. And when I say our government, the way we do, because the UPDF is part of the government. Yes. So for me,
has given you
I would really insist that we must do in-house cleaning.
You've increasingly used the court as a walking stick.
Yeah, we should do our own in-house cleaning. And if we do so, the MCCs will actually have no job.
No, we'll have better jobs. I don't want to be representing people in court martial. I wouldn't wish. Actually, when Lydia says, some of this
and I said, this court martial, taking people to court martial, has brought even the lawyers would never have heard about. And now also, they are now big names. We have given them gravitas.
Well, for me, I think that is looking at a smaller thing. But the bigger issue, and the bigger issue even outside court martial, and Eddie talked about it, that the issues of access, the issues of course I would be representing you, Lydia, but the issues of the issues of pre-trial remand, where people spend a lot of time in custody. We can give examples of people who are not in court martial. Remember the case of Honorable Alan Sewanyan and the late Honorable Segirinya and 7 others. At one time, even I think it was Bench one day, when the Chief Justice said this trial should begin in the next 2 months. That was about 2 years ago. And in fact, you're talking about Alan and the late Segirinya, but the 7 others are still in custody. The trial has never kicked off. And those are people who were arrested about 3 years ago, and many others.
No. But now, if you're talking about the MPs, how about the lower voices? Ssemujju talked about their profiles. How about the lower people?
Absolutely.
Who are 10 years?
That's what he's saying.
Absolutely. That's my point.
But where
there's an
judicial
Eddie.
officers actually have
George,
discretion.
there's an Eddie in Tinder said some people have been in prison for 20 years. Is that possible?
20 is not possible.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
You were charged.
At least not on remand.
Remanded 10 years ago.
Remand. No.
We give you unconditional bail. When the state is ready, they will bring. But they don't do it.
Because that can work as well. You're saying it is possible that...
Recently, the Parliament, during the inquiry, discovered that there's a case of somebody who had been on remand for about 20-something years. It was on the news all over the news. But also, at least I can testify, the people whom I've known of as long as 15 years on remand. Now, as we are on the ground, as far as Kapchorwa, as far as Boko, you may never hear of them because they're in big names. But people are sent to custody and they wait for a day that never comes for their trials.
There were those with Olive Rutaya, or in that case.
Yes, of course, those ones are...
9 of them?
9 of them are still in custody at Chitalia. There are even those who have been in prison prior than them. There's a gentleman I met in Chitalia. It's not a political case or anything. And he's been there for about 8 years in custody, awaiting trial. Now, if the government charges me...
The farming I'm doing in Kapelebyong and Tororo has exposed me to prison labor. Which is lawful. You go and pay, and they give you prison inmates to come and work for you.
Cheap labor.
Yes. No, it's not cheap. Actually, it's the market rate, 5,000 for the day they work. Just like we give the other people. Now, in the course of working for me, both in Kapelebyong and in Toro, you go asking people, why are you in prison? Why are you in prison? Why are you in prison? And they tell you, defilement, blah, blah, this. And ask him, when were you last brought for your case either to be heard or for mention? In those far-flung prisons like Amuria, in the Kapelebyong we use Amuria prison, which is like 30 kilometers away. A fellow tells you, I was last taken before a magistrate 3 years ago. When you ask a prison officer, they said, but we don't have transport. So how can we take a prisoner to take plea?
So online services are not there yet?
No.
They have
No, not yet. So what the Angola is saying... Yes, the High Court, the court martial issue has highlighted, but it is an indictment on civilian court to have huge numbers of people on remand.
Backlog.
Whose cases have never been mentioned. They never go to prison to magistrates at all.
That's what these ones want.
A discussion for next time.
Can I also
George Musi.
just add something before?
No, you
Okay,
add it. I'll give you a minute. You add it in your next submission. Abductions. The most recent one was your chairman, Nyanzi. Pardon?
It's not the most recent.
It's not the most recent?
The most recent took place yesterday.
The most recent took place yesterday?
Yes.
And what was that? Well, let's talk about NUP abductions.
Of course, when we say the word abductions, and just like what was this happening with kidnapped, these are and I agree that an arrest is defined in the law. Our laws say that if you are to charge me for anything, tell me that you are being charged for this, detain me at a gazetted place, let me access my next of kin or lawyers if possible. And if it hold me, it shouldn't be beyond 48 hours. Where people dressed like Ofono Pondo come armed in an unregistered car, sometimes they even shoot. They take me to an unknown place for days. That cannot be an arrest. And I heard Mr. Bariomo saying, it's not an abduction. Security. So we think it's a trend that has continued. The last 5 years I've witnessed it a lot. At the last week, before Chairman Nyanzi, they had taken two people who were not as known as Nyanzi. That's the week prior. When the week started, of course, Nyanzi was arrested, Fred Nyanzi, just not very far away from here, around Molago. He was released, dropped at his home yesterday. The day after Nyanzi, I think that was Tuesday, they arrested 4 people who were traveling from a barrio. They're traveling from Masaka. Those are all members of our election management committee. 2 gentlemen and 2 ladies. 2 days later, the ladies were also released, purportedly on police bond. The gentlemen are not yet accounted for, but they were arrested at the same time. Just yesterday, 3 people were arrested, including the head of NUP security, Achille Ochivombi, who we got out on bail not so long ago, about 3 months ago, somewhere in Lugazi, as they were traveling to Jinja with a colleague he was with. He was brought to his home yesterday to do what they call a search, I don't know, and together with the gentleman he was arrested with. And another colleague was also abducted. He's nowhere to be seen yet. So these are the ones we know. And of course the trend is always similar, that they hold you in an unknown place. They don't charge you with any serious thing. Sometimes you have to go to court to seek court interventions. Like the 2 colleagues who were arrested last week, their habeas corpus applications are supposed to come out on Monday for hearing. So sometimes when we serve them with court documents, that's when they release or come up with some sort of a charge. So it's the continued thing we've seen since 2021, and of course which was also climaxed by the siege at the party offices, which is still taking place as we speak now. Started last evening, lasted through the night, and up to now. With what they are called, police statement said they are conducting a search. And still even a search, as even the partisan lawyers like Lydia, Honorable, would agree, such is under our laws.
That's under Uganda laws?
Under our Ugandan laws. You cannot search my home in my absence. In fact, I'm even supposed to come with a lawyer if I have one. No, we didn't. But they broke in.
You fled, no?
No, a search, for instance, especially an organizational search, for instance, there's no reason why you wouldn't tell me. We fled. How did you flee when they came and locked up everyone, and then they ordered the few people were there to go out, and then they are purporting to conduct a search.
So you've been using words like they, them, who?
Security. Security, yes.
Police.
Now, we can't. Of course, I saw police owning up by some 50-word statement last evening unsigned. I saw police owning up, saying that. But beyond that, of course, we're seeing a lot of army presence, including UPDF vehicles and clearly army. But at least we saw police. However, when it comes to abductions, it's never police. Because all these people who come out, for instance, the 2 officials who were released this week, including Mr. Nyanzi, who was dropped at his home yesterday, they were at the former CMI offices in Mbuya. That's where they are detained. Last I checked, that's not a police facility.
Honorable Ssemujju, on abductions or kidnaps and so on, are you surprised that NUP is experiencing these things at this moment in time?
No, I am not. We've gone through this. After 2016 elections, our headquarters at that time, when I was still FDC, they raided and took it over for 3 weeks. Carried away printer, computers, everything.
Did they ever bring them back?
Some were brought back, others they claimed they are not the ones who took them. But there is no offense and nobody was charged with any offense. I was on a Uganda radio station and I told them we are in a period where we should expect 3 things. prison if you are lucky, death or exile, like in the case of Kakwenza, Nyanza and others. We will now even begin preferring prison. The late Aziz Kasuja told me, and I mean, he was arrested and taken to Makindye military police. He spoke to a few colleagues who were in the military and said, you guys, why don't you help me out? And they said, it is safer for you to stay here. So you stay in prison. So we are already into that period.
By his lawyer, the way you see the cloud outside.
So that's why I said we are into that period. And I want to thank you for that information.
Both were NRM.
Yes. And these are NRM people. Aziz Kasuja was a part of the Amin government at one time. And that's why, Lydia, and I want to thank you if I can take you back to what you have said. You NRM people need to learn. I remember in Parliament, I was grabbed there by police on the instructions of late Jacob Oranya because I was protesting in the manner in which the Public Order Management Act was being processed. These NRM MPs were, Abdu Katun is actually one who used the word, were being ferried on borders. We had spent 3 weeks processing this registration clause by clause. And on the last day when you are actually just passing after scrutiny, they ferried all NRM MPs, I would say somewhat, were brought on borders. And I said, this cannot happen. So the punishment I got was to be dragged out of. But the substantive issue is that even when Oranya dropped his stance, Amama said I should go to the disciplinary. He was very angry that I did not go through a disciplinary committee. Eventually, he was the first person to be arrested under that law when he was going for presidential consultations at Jinja. So as you go through this UPDF amendment that Lydia want to propose, and I am now speaking to all the NRM MPs wherever you are, you will be like Gracie Winjira, the one of the Detention Without Trial Act. He helped Obote to enact a law because at that time he thought they were targeting opponents. Then within a short period, he became the opponent. He was the very first person to be put in prison under a law he had written to target others. So these abductions, we've lived with them. People have died. That Besigye, you see, his brother was arrested from Besigye's petrol station in Zambia, charged. The matter was never processed. When he was about to die because of prison conditions, they allowed him, and then he died. Musasis. There are others. So what NOP is experiencing now is what everybody, whether NOP, whether FDC, you will go through. Because you see, you are dealing with people who, by fighting in Ruwero, they think now this country belongs to them.
But and maybe they'll say NOP brought it on themselves.
By doing what?
48 hours of whatever, and then they're accused of having militia.
Which militia? You see, I saw people making comments. I was in Makerere when Northcote was still there. 600 university students. Everybody had not more than one pair of military, and they were putting them on.
But good, you're saying when Northcote was still there. Is it still there?
And actually, it was not. The reason they banned it was not because of the military attire.
It was what?
Was because they were accused of crushing soda bottles and pouring them into the food of Afrostone when they were celebrating their day, and Kataha was the guest of honor. I was still at the university. I know that story of honor because I lived there.
You people were that violent?
No, actually that was also a fake, because what they did was put in the paper, but they wanted to emotionally play on the psychology of the guest of honor, the wife of the president. Said they have crushed bottles put in our food. They were even crying. And then when she went and told her husband, they said now Northcote is closed. But the point, Oscar, and allow me to make it, the attitude of one opponent made very good point. So Lydia did. But we are dealing with a monster. People who came from Ruwero, they think it is their birthright to be the leaders in Uganda. Museveni has been smarter. He doesn't do the things that the Aminis did, putting their names and their faces on on occurrence. But he has done the same things differently. You read the UPDF Act, which the leaders are now amending, and Museveni's name is there permanently as a member of the Historical High Command. Even in the grave, Museveni will remain a member of the UPDF Historical High Command, and therefore by that history, he becomes a member of the UPDF High Command even today, even in death, because his name is in the law. The same thing that they are meaning to put their heads on. So, and now something else has developed, which is terrible. They now think we are the ones who have grown in this country. You've seen opponents speaking about their contribution. Well, now our children must take over. Whether the children have brains in their heads or not, this is our thing. They must take it over. The rest of you, it is up to you. So that's what we are dealing with. And as I said, you see, there are many bad things that Museveni has done, but they will get worse, because you cannot be succeeded just by your children, whether they have heads on their shoulders or not. And they who?
So
Arupo, who was appointed vice president, and the first thing she did was to go and visit and thank Sare in the north. Please don't insult me.
Eddie Nangulu.
You think that is a vice president? Go and read Kazora's book.
Yeah, Eddie Nangulu.
Yes.
With the abductions.
Yes.
The banging the table, radical new bar.
Yes.
Do you have a plan for these people that might be rotting in prison, or those that have been abducted and returned? With, I don't know what Nyanzi was charged with, but should we just be happy that he was returned?
No, charged with anything, of course.
He wasn't. What do you mean?
He wasn't charged with anything.
Why have you added, of course?
Yes, of course. In that same, what you call it now, DIS something in Mboya, and they even gave him free transport to his home, but they didn't enter. Then they dropped him outside the gate.
Eddie Nangulu.
Yes.
That's your own Nankulu, your own.
Yes. The mic is now in my hands.
Yes. Please continue.
The radical new bar, of course, indeed, is banging tables wherever they exist, wherever there has been abuse of procedure and malpractice. We haven't left any stone unturned. As a matter of fact, when we took office, among our first key things to do was to begin to take steps to represent the Karamajongs who had been detained illegally at the court-martial. Now we continue to offer representation through our members. My brother here, Moses, one of our members, doing a good job on ground to represent people who are detained illegally. Now, but even beyond that, the abductions aren't new. They haven't begun to occur yesterday. First, they even remind us of days past of what previous governments used to do to entrench their role. But recently, I think if I may draw two clear examples, the Black Mamba scenario, the Kiza Besigye, and the rape of the court at that time. Those are now phenomenal. We can talk lightly about the recent situations, but the Kiza Besigye situation and also the Honorable Akamba when he was picked up at the court premises. Now, those are violent occurrences that indeed should not be happening today. We have come out strongly. We have protested against it. We even told the MPs that back in the day, they were immune from these things. But now they are also victims of similar occurrences. We are trying to implement the law as it must be, as it should be. And at least under our radical regime, we will not allow these occurrences to go unchecked. Yes.
Just a few minutes to the break. When Nyanzi was arrested, I just thought, they call him Chairman Nyanzi. I just thought, can police write a letter to him and say, please come and... So, we've had such a letter at Capital Gang, yeah? They write to you, please come at 10 a.m. You think it wouldn't work to invite him instead of unnecessary drama?
That's what I have said. I said earlier on that
actually you've said it repeatedly.
By the way police and other security agencies do things, they make government even their own institution and obviously by extension the country look bad.
Yes. Yet it is good.
First of all, I expect that many of these things are intelligence-led, which means in simple terms you profile. There are those you can summon and they will comply with police summon or even court summon, and therefore you don't need rough handling, rough tackling.
That level of violence.
And this is not just the political people. Even the case of those MPs who were involved in alleged corruption, you saw how they were roughly arrested, the police vans whizzing to their homes and surrounding, and you see their gates and many, and they say, using sirens and so on, and say, what is all this? When you could have summoned them either through the speaker or ordinarily and the report. Now, when somebody...
I know the cases have even died.
Yes, I know, they're in court. They're in court. Okay. So,
I should give you information. When the last time they appeared, the Honorable Akamba complained that his rights had been violated and he wanted the constitutional interpretation. And the matter was referred there, and as Oscar said, it will never resurrect.
Yeah, but at least it died, it is still there. Maybe you can say it's lying in limbo. So, and we have said before that tackling suspects in this way gives them fertile ground to challenge their prostitution. And the president himself has said so repeatedly. Said, when you touch a suspect and obtain so-called evidence, of what evidential value is it? Unfortunately, our security agencies, particularly the ones responsible for apprehending people and taking them to the law enforcement courts, haven't learned this. We need to do better. Now, in the case of NOP, Mr. C says it is a siege. I contest his use of the word siege. As far as I know, including this morning, police actually, markedly from the previously, in this particular case, they went to court and obtained a search warrant. When they went yesterday, NOP officials who are managing the offices fled. And that's what I was cracking a joke.
That's not true.
Now, maybe they thought that they come to arrest them. However,
the way they saw Nyanzi, who would not run away.
Yeah, their security man and others were there, and from what I've been briefed, actually had 70% of the keys to different offices, and was asked to sign a form. He opened the rooms that the police was interested in. This is what I have been told. And the police searched every place. Of course, they picked some of the things they think are of value for their investigation. The doors that were locked, I have been told, the police used its power in the law to break those doors in the presence of the LC and the person managing the office. This is what I've been told. Now, of course, there are remedies. If there are ultra-vires actions of the police, there are remedies.
Sure.
But it is not a C. And when the search was not concluded yesterday, the police gave the person managing NOP offices, who is their security person, to sign. He indeed signed, and police kept presence there overnight. They went back this morning as we speak. The search in Kamwocha was concluded yesterday. Today morning, they resumed the search at Kavule. I don't know if it has ended. So that's the situation. However, if there are things that you think was a breach, you have remedies. I'm not saying that police should behave with impunity on the line that you have a remedy you can seek, but that's what has happened. Now, what prompted this particular search was your own training, where the police says you are training a militia. Now, of course, when allegations come, the police is free to come and the police supported, again, in law, by other sister security agencies. Now, if you are really law-abiding and the police is coming, why not stay and ask them? You say, this is my gate. What you have nothing to hide. Why don't you stay there, challenge them, even refuse to open while you are there and say, we are the owners of this premises, we have committed no offense, and if they want, they can use their force. You look at them using their force, that's okay, but don't run away. And it is critical to say, you are now behaving like the Congolese army. That is fleeing, because you say you are an army. So why are you fleeing if you are an army?
Who says it's an army?
You.
Where?
You.
No one has this
Armies can actually run. The one of Uganda was beaten by Congo and they took off.
Yes. So
in Kisangani 1 and 2.
Yes. That's why I'm saying they are like those ones that run. If you are an army, that means the fact that you fled. It means your motives are sinister in the things you do. Yeah, unless you are withdrawing, you are going to regret it. It means you have sinister motive. For me, I have never been arrested, I can say. But if the police was to come to my home, or even stop me at the road, I will stop.
Or even invite you to a police station.
So I'm saying, there are cases where, and many of these cases actually should be summoned by the police or via court, and then if they refuse to appear, then you can use the kind of So I think some of the things, how do you say it in Uganda? I think that's how we show force. You have seen even on the road. You have seen you go to a fuel station. People who are supposed to have a smiling face at the fuel station ask you rudely. You go to a bank, they say, what do you want? So I think we need to teach people.
Change your bank.
Customer
hours
care.
are very good. Let's stop for a quick break. Come back from the break. This is the Capital FM. Lydia Wanyoto Mutende on microphone.
And I want just a second. Nanguru says they haven't left any stone unturned. For us who come from the traditional societies, we use the stones, grinding stone. You don't overturn that one. So don't say.
So what are you grinding?
This
man is banging tables. He doesn't know what to do.
There are some stones you shouldn't overturn.
Lydia,
yes.
On abductions and one would say rule of law.
They break it down.
You see, you can
that is Ssemujju's word.
You can claim your rights and you can claim your rule of laws in an environment that gives you that space. So for me, I would like to I've heard the Ssemujju saying, if you write this bad law, it will catch up with you. But it is double-edged. Because law, you wait. But it's double-edged. We should also write laws that are blind. I shouldn't write a law that protects me. I should write a law that is good for the community. And if I do wrong, I should be caught by that law. I shouldn't write a law that I say, if I do this, it will protect me. So it is double-edged. That I've heard people now, it has become a song even at Parliament. Today it is me, tomorrow it is you. Stop those songs. Write good laws for Uganda. And laws should be blind. Laws should be blind. Don't begin now talking about it. Today it is me, today it's tomorrow. No. A law should be good, should be tight, should be tested. It should be owned by the people. Do public hearings so that laws work for all of us. On the issue of, did you call them abductions?
Abductions, yes.
I've said it. Why is it that people get arrested after abducted? If someone has been abducted, you know what to do. But also, why are you standing in the way of the law? People are now going to seek arrest warrant because they have suspicions. Why are you in the way of being suspected? Do your work the way you are supposed to do. Present yourselves. Be within the line of the law. Nobody is going to come for you. And if you think it is the politics, you have the space to make the noise. All the media houses in Uganda today, they are just because it's a political year, Oscar. So maybe this is an opportunity for people to have the platform. it will be on and on. Some are going to hide. We see they hide, then it was very common in Makerere. Ssemujju, you remember the politics of our university. People, when he's going to lose an election, they hide. If they hide for 2-3 days, they've been. So, Oscar, be careful about your question about abductions. We don't know whether the abductions are genuine or they are faked. Because for us, we used to have people faking.
Chairman Nyanzi could have abducted himself.
I've just said be cautious about putting us on spot because some of them are fake. People come out limping from the bush when they were self-abducted.
But Oscar, you remember
seeking attention, seeking media attention.
Yes? The case of Honorable Mpugo in 2020, where he was shot in a hotel and he claimed that it was the government that had shot him, but eventually it was found it was different things. So
we must also know.
Even this future of Besigye could be something else. Could be one way to seek base.
So Oscar, I'm not saying that I am blind to abductions. They could be genuine, but then there are processes to which somebody can be searched for and sought for through legal processes. But do not forget that 2025 is a year of politics. Some people are going to bring out all the antics, including faking abduction, so that they seek sympathy, they seek attention, media, whatever it is. We should also be mindful of that. Someone disappears for 3 days, is a candidate for Chida municipality, comes out limping. Oh, I was beaten. Oh, I was what?
Leader, it's good you've said that you are cognizant that some people are being abducted.
So not just
because
a one way.
If you don't say that, people might think you are insensitive.
No, I am. I mean, I can also be abducted, but we should not forget the times and the environment. And I've given you an example where I used to see it happen when I was a student leader in Makerere. That's one everybody knows. But we used to have people who are going to lose the election, they disappear and they cause us problems. Then they postpone the election. They are looking for who is a candidate. Kumbe he didn't have logistics to finish his campaign.
Just a quick one. Of course, Lydia, you risk sounding very, very insensitive.
No, I want to be honest and objective because these things happen.
I don't know of anyone. I don't know of anyone in the last 5 years who has faked an abduction and in the last 5 years. Thank God you are referring to university days. To the contrary, I can give you over 50 habeas corpus applications we've made in the High Court where a person has been missing, where someone has been missing for days, sometimes months. In one case, even state attorneys come to court and say, we've searched everywhere, the person is not there. Then a month later, the person is purportedly released on police bond. Now, in the case of Mr. Nyanzi, he was arrested in broad daylight. There were even gunshots at Kubiri at 5 p.m. And the police was saying, a place which has a lot of footage, a CCTV camera, where police would even gladly say, no, this is he was taken. But they can't even own up. Because it's one thing to say, we've taken him, now he's in the custody of us as security. But they can't own up until they release them. In the case of the ladies who were arrested on Massacre Road and the gentlemen, in fact, no one even noticed. We just found out when their phones went off. And they hadn't reached home and the phones were off. And we imagined that maybe we started...
Are they NUP people?
Yes, of course. They are the officials of the Election Management Committee. And then 2 days later, into the night, they are taken to police in Chireka to purportedly sign for police bond. So right now when a person disappears, you can't even know whether it's a gang that has taken them because police, in all the instances, police never owns up to say that we have him.
But eventually it's
sanitized by exit through a police bond. And then for others like Nyanzi, of course, they didn't even go through a police bond. It was just dropped by the roadside.
The way they are, we are mindful of that, but I also want you that you have a training school, train your cadres, your foot soldiers about the laws of Uganda, so that you have a balanced sheet.
Of course,
don't train people to listen to me, Musisi.
Let I tell you.
We know ourselves; they're all in the field. Don't train people to be provocative, to be defiant. And then when they get into the long hands of the law, you come crying because you should be equal to what you are training them.
But you've not been there. What are they training? What are they training?
I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
The first thing you should be asked.
I've not seen your training money, but I'm only cautioning you. But that's what I'm saying. Because why are they found in the wrong hand of their law?
But who has been convicted?
Lydia and George, hold on 1 second.
You wait and see.
Lydia and George, first wait a second. Let me ask Ofon. So who trained Ssemujju? Because Lydia is saying, don't train them to be provocative. This question is going to Ofon.
Ssemujju was trained. Ssemujju
The question has gone to Ofonopono.
Ssemujju was trained by the Honorable Nandala Mafabi and Mr. Kiza Besigye.
To be provocative.
To be aggressive.
To be aggressive.
To be defiant. And let me just tell George.
They'll catch up with you.
Don't think that because don't think that because
hold on. You've done very well answering my question. Let me ask you another one. Who says it is illegal for someone to be provocative, aggressive, and challenge the law?
Nobody has said so.
Yeah.
But if law enforcement suspects you and tackles you also aggressively,
okay, that's different.
Don't come crying. And let me just tell George, the fact that we don't talk publicly what we know and we think you are doing as a precursor to defeat proper smooth electoral process in some areas where you think you are dominant, doesn't mean that we don't know what you do. And please, when we come breaking limbs, I mean, yes, when, and I'm using that figuratively. When we are using, when we come breaking limbs, don't cry. Don't cry, because that time is going to come. Because some of you think that you want to own the space. You harassed NRM people the other day in 2020, 2021. You think that's the narrative you want to have. And you started with, by the way, the Ssemujju started with that. You remember the Tojikwata Code 27. You remember the case of Hon Ssemujju and others, the NRM MPs in Uganda. This time, we are ready for you as a state. The way, hold on, George. The way, for example, Kiza Besigye case in court, it shows you don't know. So when you say you know, it is also a contradiction. What don't we know?
They've had to.
No.
Now Ngulu here gave us through the process.
We took him to the court that we believed, and we still
did not require sufficient evidence.
Is a competent court. Now, if somebody challenges my thinking, that's okay. Owunjidoro has said this court doesn't have competence to do this, and we agree. We don't agree with him, but we accept his decision, and we are going to do as we think we should do.
Okay.
So these NUP guys should know.
They know, Fonopondo. When you have violence visited upon you,
do they need a lecture that they are going to be abducted?
No.
Does
Nyanzi need to know
or that they are going to be shot?
Just to say, we shall.
But do you think Nyanzi does not know the violence that can be visited upon him?
And that's why they fled.
Yes. Of course, sir.
That's why you fled your offices yesterday.
When you are talking about
people used to run away.
Yeah.
When you're talking about how police and earlier you were advising how they should approach this, their intention is not to carry out a successful legal prosecution. In fact, I've never said that NUP is above the law. If you think that NUP, or anyone for that matter, has broken any laws of the land, the state should not behave like a militia by finding people on the streets and taking them. Charge them and prosecute them. To the contrary,
Excellent.
You're talking about the violence we meted out. Who has been convicted?
Excellent. That's a good way to finish. Or not, we will not agree upon. The rest we can have a discussion after the show. So, having three lawyers in the studio, and we'll start with the non-lawyers, Honorable Ssemujju and Fonopondo, on the banging the radical new bar president, convicted and sentenced to jail. The last sentence was arrest and jail him for what? For 2 years. So were you surprised by that conviction, and what next now for the president of the radical new bar?
I am sometimes conflicted because just Sekana was like a brother. We were at the university together in Mitchell. He was part of our social groups even when we left. Yes. But the way he conducts himself as a judge is very shocking. But so I said, as I said, I am conflicted. I appeared before his court when we took the Ofonopono's group of Nandara.
That's my group.
Yes.
That is
so when we were in that court, he was very insulting, very angry. It's as if going to his court, we had committed a crime. He even told us, "You speak up, I have another appointment." I said, eventually one of his guards came and he was elbowing me. I said, "You man, have some discipline. You mean Sekana is an angel that if we squeeze ourselves entering, he can't squeeze himself going out?" Then he felt embarrassed. Because really, if you are a lawyer of Sekana's competence, he has even written books for the School of Law. And I remember one time when they made appointments, another lawyer with whom we were in class, Fred Mpanga, not Mpanga, the senior, he said, I don't know if he still holds the same view. He said, instead of appointing, why don't they appoint people like the Sekanas? I don't know if he still has the same view. Because they told him he has even written books people have read at the law school. So in a matter where you are conflicted, because the president of Law Society was being accused of contempt of court, and the person at the center of that contempt is Sekana. Someone else goes to court, he files a case, you are the one hearing it, and you are the one who is complaining that this guy didn't respect me, has been abusing me on social media. And then you say, in his absence, now I have sentenced you to 2 years. What do they want us to take these courts to be? I have started fearing Sekana the same way I was fearing Kavuma. I told you, Oscar, I used to move with my passport. I said one day,
I remember that time.
If I ever appear before, if they tell me you're going to appear before Kavuma, I will be in another country, maybe like Kakwenza. Because you can't be a judge who is complaining that you have been disrespected, and then they bring that suspect. You are behaving like Museveni, who is not a judge. Because Museveni picks Besigye, him and his son are the one who's complaining.
Some people say that's how you spoil a good argument.
No. Because these things, they are the same. Because Besigye, Muhoozi says Besigye wants to kill my father, and he is brought to a court that Muhoozi supervises. What's the difference between Muhoozi and Sekana? Because the reason you want to come to courts of judges who have been trained, some of them highly trained, it is because we know by your training and conduct there are things you may not, even if you feel bad about them. So I sympathize with Semakade. I think he's done things that people didn't know he was capable of doing. So by banging the tables are also now banging him.
Paying the price. So follow upon the other non-lawyer.
Well, first of all, what has been the strategy of the opposition, particularly FDC, which I think now NUP has ably copied, and elements in the Radical New Bar are copying. Target specific state officials who you think are bidding either Museveni's or government interests. Isolate them, expose them, harass them, harangue them, even take them to the court of public opinion, and where possible to the ICC. You remember they were doing so with the armed officers, they did so with the police officers, they tried with the Honorable Stephen Kavuma. They have now zeroed on Sekana. What are the offenses of all the lawyers who have been taken to court, convicted by judges?
You speed up because we are.
They have been accused. They have been accused for contempt of court when they appear in court, or when they are commenting on issues before courts. This was the case with Malema Birizi.
Also convicted by Sekana.
Yes, this was the
who
case.
You are saying they are targeting.
This was the case of Aaron. This is the case of Aaron Kiza,
convicted by Muhoozi.
And this is the case of Semakade. What are the procedures and standards when a judge you appear before accuses you of contempt? I think it is the same judge in his court who decides to take you to jail. I don't know if there is appeal. That's why I'm raising the question of procedure. Is this all being done by, maybe there are judges or magistrates who have been restrained either by character or have been intimidated. If I tackle a lawyer who's ever in court like Mabirizi, won't you take me this way? There are lawyers who, they are judges or judicial officers, or even some of us who don't. I have never sued anybody.
But can you follow upon sue anybody?
I have never.
Thank you,
whether land was
Lydia.
never sued.
Yeah.
Now we go to the lawyers.
So,
Lydia.
but what we know is your strategy is to isolate your.
Okay.
Yes, your
Lydia,
strategy is to isolate certain people and target and harass them. And I think this is the same case with Justice Sekana. There's nothing is doing which is out
Lydia
of the norm.
on a judgment against a radical new bar president. It's on your microphone.
The good news about these court processes is that there's always a window for appeal. So if you feel that you are not being handled fairly, you can always appeal. But also they provide for if you think that
contempt?
Any case,
right?
Contempt notwithstanding. But also if you feel that on either side, you can ask the judge to recuse himself, or they can also step down if they think that the matter that before them they are conflicted. So all these procedures are provided.
He refused.
You can ask him to recuse, and then you also make an appeal. So Oscar, it's not an end. There's always a window, and I think that.
So he can appeal.
The issues between the radical bar that is even steady in front of me and on my side on the left, who are our leaders, and the bench, is that their matters I don't think are best resolved in courts of law. Or even cases, because I think the best thing is to sit down and agree on how we can work together, because the judicial service of our country requires all of us. The bench is as important as the bar. So if the bangers of the tables who are here can listen to some of us, we are, because all of you are playing out your egos, your right, your spaces, you are speaking a lot of laws, but the public is suffering. We are supposed to be seen to
work
be
together.
Yeah. So please, let's get
Eddie?
off the whatever and see if we can negotiate working together, negotiating how to work together.
So Eddie, what ways forward?
Oscar, the judgment is unfortunate by His Lordship Sekana. It set us aback. This is the first time that you have a president being convicted. Right now, if you read the judgment, as my brother was saying, Honorable Ssemujju here, you can't be a judge in your own cause. That is a first year law 101, that you know that if you are...
I have since found out that it is not particularly illegal. If you can say, I am objective about this and everything, you can refuse to recuse yourself.
You see where you may suspect bias and where you think it may hamper your objectivity, there is no way you are going to, even if you make the right decision, because of what is being portrayed by your conduct. These words that were said by the president.
Eddie, there's an issue of time.
Yes.
Yet I have many questions to ask you. Let me put to you.
Yes.
You couldn't see this coming. I mean, you'd been banging tables and calling Sekana names and so on. You couldn't see it coming. Were you caught off guard?
No. Oscar, we saw this coming.
Right.
We knew of the decision. We knew of the sentence.
Right. Even before the decision.
But yes, we knew of it.
The conduct of the radical new bar previously, you didn't think
we are living in days of utmost chaos. The system that we are fighting against cannot be addressed by decorum speakers. It is deep rooted that until you bang the table hard, people won't hear our voices. People won't hear our voices. That is why we are constrained. We are constrained to take these matters here the way we are doing it, because until we speak loudly and bang the tables hard, we won't be heard.
George Musi, you started the show, you are ending the show.
Well,
same question as Eddie Nangulu. Were you taken by surprise? by that conviction?
There's nothing very, very surprising lately, Oscar. But yes, can courts hold a lawyer in contempt? Yes. Are there standards for holding someone in contempt? Yes. The Supreme Court has even set the standard. That unlike in the case of Aaron Kiza, where he was tried and convicted and not even given a chance. But what Eddie was saying, and I want to emphasize is that, and even Honorable Ssemujju, that the issue of bias, yes, it's up to the individual judicial officer to recuse themselves, but there are also standards there that an ordinary person should be able to see and say this decision came as a result of independence or without bias. Last year, the Constitutional Court made a decision, Justice Wamgemerere, in the case of Zake, which was almost similar, where the Speaker had presided over Parliament, Zake had been accused of insulting the Speaker on Twitter, just like Semakade here, insulting the same judge. And Justice Wamgemerere in her decision said, of course, the Speaker was deputy then, said that, but however you were the person who had been insulted, what was so pressing that you couldn't wait for your boss to preside over a house when you are the subject matter. So same issues arise that maybe it could have been handled better. Maybe, of course, the judge could have handled it over to any of the judges in the division to handle. That irrespective of whether the decision was right or not, an independent person sitting aback like you, Oscar, cannot watch and say there was no bias in this matter because you presided over a matter where you were the most aggrieved party.
So thank you very much, listeners of the Capital Gang.
You haven't read that message, the case of Mnyagwa who abducted himself and smeared the chicken blood on himself.
Yeah. You know, Levi Eyaro. Thank you so much, listeners of the Capital Gang. Thank you, Star Cafe. The performance of the gang has been very good, apart from maybe Musisi, who has not performed. Thank you, Eddie Nangulu, the Uganda Law Society Council representative of Eastern Region.
Can you mediate between Musisi and Ssemujju?
Yes, I'm going to speak to them. Thank you, Honorable Ssemujju. Thank you.
Oscar is enjoying the red and the blue here.
Thank you, Honorable Leader Nyoto Ofonopondo. Thank you, George Musi. I am Oscar Ssemujju, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.